All right, let's take a trip back in time. We're setting the dial to the year 2000. Think flip phones, the dot-com bubble just about to burst, and the very, very early days of online education. We're going to see what it was really like through the eyes of a true pioneer in the field, Morten Flate Paulsen. Let's dive in. So, to really get this, you have to picture what the world was like back then. The year 2000 was a heavy one. You had Vladimir Putin and George W. Bush coming into power, and the whole world was watching these awful tragedies unfold, like the Concorde crash and the Kursk submarine disaster. This was the backdrop, the world stage where this new experiment in online learning was just starting to happen. But while all that was happening, a really powerful new dream was starting to take hold. This idea of a truly global classroom, something that could be open to anyone, anywhere. And one of the first, most ambitious efforts to make that dream real was a program called SPICE. So what exactly was SPICE? Well, the name stands for Specialization Program in International Online Education. And look, this wasn't just some online course. It was this amazing partnership between Norway's NKI and Canada's famous Athabasca University. Their whole goal was to figure out how to train the very first teachers for this brand new international online world. And this is where you can see just how ahead of the curve they were. I mean, look at these course titles. They weren't just thinking, hey, let's put some lectures online. No, they were thinking about everything. Course design, how to actually teach online, the admin side of things, and even how different countries would approach it. It's incredible, really. This was basically a blueprint for the future. So you hear about these big, grand plans, right? But how did it actually start? Well, in the fall of 2000, that course on design and development, it had just 11 students, 11 Canadian master students. It's just a great reminder that every huge revolution starts with a pretty small group of people who are brave enough to go first. Okay, so the dream was there, this amazing idea of a borderless classroom. But, and there's always a but, right? It slammed right into some very real-world walls. Things like culture, language, and of course, money. And this brought up the huge question of the day, something people like Paulsen were really wrestling with. I mean, the internet was so dominated by English. Could a program from Norway or from anywhere else really have a fighting chance on a global stage? And Paulsen himself just nailed it in this letter he wrote to Newsweek. He pointed out this fundamental problem. For American educators, the internet felt like their home market. But for everyone else, it felt more like a chance to study courses from the US, not to offer their own. But, not everyone thought it was that simple. There was this other idea floating around that Paulsen often talked about. This writer, Robin Mason, argued that education just isn't like Coca-Cola. It's way too complex, too personal. It's not a market where a couple of giants can just come in and take over. So that was the big debate. Would online education become a globalized brand, or would it stay local and diverse? And believe me, this wasn't just a debate happening in some university hall. Nope. This was playing out in the high-stakes Wild West world of tech startups. And nothing, I mean nothing, screams the year 2000 like a dot-com story, with massive dreams and a brutal reality check. So get this. Paulsen gets invited to join this startup called search4.edu. The idea? It was honestly brilliant. They wanted to create a giant, smart portal, basically a Google for every single online course in the world, and the whole thing would be funded by ads. And the story is it's a classic from that era. You've got the huge idea. You've got the small, passionate team. You've got the big meeting with investors in some fancy hotel suite in Oslo. And then, bam, reality hits. No funding. The investors got cold feet because the dot-com boom was just starting to wobble. The whole dream just fizzled out. It's easy to think of all this happening just on computers and servers. But building a global community, that meant you had to get on a plane. It meant traveling the world, sharing your ideas, and actually connecting with people face-to-face, one conference at a time. Paulsen's journey took him to some seriously amazing and really remote places. First up, the Faroe Islands, this incredibly rugged, isolated group of islands in the middle of the North Atlantic. And he was there to lead a workshop on these brand new ideas of flexible online education. And while he was there, a local fisherman told him this. I just love this quote. It so perfectly captures this way of life that depends on technology, radar, echo sounders, to navigate a really dangerous environment.
And isn't that a perfect metaphor for what these pioneers were doing, using new tools to find their way in totally uncharted territory?
So you go from the quiet, rugged North Atlantic to the complete opposite, the massive, bustling city of Beijing. The next stop was a huge international event, the 16th IFIP World Computer Congress. And this was a massive deal. I mean, we're talking about the president of China giving the opening speech. Paulsen was an invited speaker, sharing his ideas with 2,000 people from all over the world. And what's interesting is that during the breaks, they weren't just talking tech. They were talking about the big world events, the Concorde, the Kursk. They were connecting as human beings. The World Tour for 2000 wraps up in beautiful Barcelona at another important meeting of the minds, the Ivette workshop, which was all about the future of virtual learning. And for Paulsen personally, this trip brought what he called an inspiring boost. His paper from the workshop actually got translated into Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. And that was real proof, you know? It was a sign that his ideas were starting to cross those very same language and cultural barriers that he'd been so worried about.
So, what does it all mean? When you add up the ambitious programs, the failed startups, the globe-trotting, what was the real legacy of the year 2000? Well, it was all about laying the critical foundation for everything that came next.
I mean, just look at the numbers here. It really puts the work into perspective. In a single year, this one person put out 5 publications in 3 different languages and gave 4 major presentations across Europe and Asia. This wasn't just theory. This was a year of intense, hands-on work building the very field that we all kind of take for granted today.
And that really brings it all home, doesn't it? The next time you log into an online class, or join a webinar, or jump on a remote meeting, just take a second to remember these early days. Because the seamless digital world that we live in now was really built on the back of all those ambitious dreams, those tough struggles, and yeah, even the spectacular dot-com failures of the year 2000.